Hello and welcome back. If I was ever going to get back on here, was after a game like the one we just witnessed. I still can't believe that happened. It's surreal. But a little disclaimer or preamble before I start is I'm sure, like many of you, after last season's 2-10 atrocity, I checked out. I probably checked out around Halloween for obvious reasons. Even this off season, I didn't pay much attention to recruiting. Didn't follow any practice reports. Really didn't beyond like maybe the first portal when we got a lot of the guys that we saw show out today, especially on the offensive line. I didn't pay much attention to that either. It wasn't until the recently released depth chart to where I was like kind of leaning forward, like in the with the PS5 controller, like okay, the season's almost here. Let me take a look. And then looking at the depth chart, all I could think of was like the movie Major League and that scene at the beginning where they're like, who the fuck are these guys? These guys are fucking shitty. You know, a lot of names there were like, okay, don't know about you or you or you. But whatever. It's neither here nor there at this point. So let's get into tonight's game. The upset. The biggest upset I can remember in quite some time. About 14-point underdogs. Of course, you put that in the context of coming off 2-10. The only hope I had coming into this game was there was rain in the forecast. I thought maybe it could get sloppy enough. Maybe Malzahn could get the run game going enough to where you keep Bama's offense off the field and enough clock burns to where, okay, we don't get completely blown the fuck out. I also just assumed our offensive and defensive lines would get their shit pushed in. But then the game started, and a lot of those things did not happen. Early on, it looked like it was going to script. Bama had like a 100-play drive, rushed the ball 12 times, and they scored a TD with little resistance. Well, I guess to be fair, there was some resistance. They did have to work for it, but for the most part, they were just getting little chunks and working their way down the field. So you thought, here you go. This is how it's going to be. But that drive did tell us one thing right off the bat with those 12 rushes Bama had, and that was, I don't know how much they trust the Simpsons guy, and I don't know how good he is. But after that, FSU, for the most part, dominated and bullied Bama. After the Tide went up 7-0, the Noles went on a 31-10 run to finish the game. And, I thought the lines of scrimmage would get pushed in. The opposite happened. Let's start with the offense, the offensive line. I think it's fair to say, even though it feels like a knee-jerk reaction and you shouldn't extrapolate that much from game one, this is probably the best offensive line, at least the starters, that Norvell's ever had. My goodness. It's not like they were dominating Bama, but they were holding their own and then some in some key situations. Pettibone, the center, was outstanding. Not just his blocking, but making sure they were in the right, checked into the right protections. And a couple plays he had a pull, obviously, which you're going to have to do a lot of with Malzahn. The center's going to have to do a lot of pulling, and he looked very athletic doing that. The biggest fuck on the team, the right tackle, Pettis, looked pretty solid. No one really stood out as like, wow, you're a liability. And that's why this probably makes it the best offensive line Norvell's had, is everyone looks to be at least good. And maybe in Pettibone's case, great. No one looks to be below average. How about that? That's probably fair to say. So that's number one. And you could tell that early. Not just the running game, but it was an early pass that was an incompletion, I think, across the middle. It was, in kind of a tight window. Our receiver got hit, didn't hold on to it. But I remember texting my friends, and I was like, okay, that play didn't work, but that was some good pass protection there. But it was early, so you just wanted to keep watching. Well, for the most part, now granted, Castellanos only had 14 pass attempts. The pass protection seemed pretty good all night. And a part of that's O-line, part of that is obviously the threat of Castellanos' legs and all the misdirection Malzahn does. But, tip of the cap to the O-line. Just super impressive against a loaded Bama defense, at least talent-wise. I know they were missing their top run-stopping defensive lineman, but still, there's a lot of talent that Bama has on that side of the ball because obvious things are obvious. Sticking with the offense, Castellanos, his game is that he had tonight is like the blueprint of what you'd like him and Malzahn to do. About 80 yards rushing, had 16 rushes, 150 yards, no turnovers. Didn't really even put the ball in danger at any point. Was just efficient. Managed the game about as well as you could hope. I think versus lesser opponents, you'll probably see him put up more passing yards. But we know he's not a great passer, so don't really care. The only issue going forward is, can he stay upright running 15 times a game? I don't think he'll run 15 times a game. I think a lot of that's opponent dependent. But you're going to see him get probably double-digit rushes more often than not. So he played a great game. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Like I said, Pettibone played well. Pittman made a catch or two, but also Pittman's blocking lived up to the hype. The new tight end from UCF. Squirrel White had a huge play at the beginning of the game, which might have been kind of a pivotal moment early in the game to give the team confidence that 40-yard strike on third down, diving catch. I fully expected, just because of last year's shenanigans, for him to roll over and for the ball not to be in his possession. But no, he completed the catch. It set up the first touchdown, and the Noles offense was off and running. Just a sight to see. Micah Dansby, you can tell Gus is going to have a field day using him. Scored I think it was the second touchdown of the game on that little reverse. Track speed for days. So that's going to be exciting to watch how he is used. Jalen Lucas didn't get to play last year. He was considered a gadget guy from Indiana, and once again, this seems like another tool in a good way, not like a douchebag tool, that Gus is going to enjoy using Lucas in different ways. And then they're just going to have a bevy of running backs. I'd say it's going to be pretty rare that any one running back gets more than 15 rushes a game. The freshman Chroma, the James Wilder Jr. comparisons, you can see that. He's huge, he's strong, he runs upright, runs people over. But just an enjoyable night on the offense. I think they had 380 yards, which isn't a ton. It is a good amount versus Bama, but what's most impressive, it was on 62 plays. So they averaged about 6 yards per play. I would not have guessed that. If you would ask me pregame, what is FSU's yards per play going to be? I probably would have guessed something that started with a 4. So Jay just really bullied them on offense. That's pretty much what they did. They literally pushed Bama around for the most part. No better example than that was when Norvell dropped his nuts. We're leading by 7 in the fourth quarter. We're on our own 30. It's 4th and 1. Not only do we go for it, but we just run it up the, I guess it was on the right side of the offensive line, and got a 3-yard gain out of it with Roydale Williams finishing the run by running over someone. We just manned up, put hat on the hat, and blew him off the ball. That's not something we saw last year, honestly. Even on Norvell's better teams, 22 and 23, that's not something we saw a ton of either. Hey, it's 3rd and 4th and short, whatever. We're just going to line up and run you over. And that's exactly what they did. And huge call, obviously, that worked out for them. But the offense gives you some hope to keep them in every game. If they're able to run the ball like that, if they're able to pass protect like that, if Castellanos is ever going to come close to making decisions like he did, smart decisions, I expect the offense is going to be pretty productive. I mean, 31 points. I don't think we touched 30 all year last year. Fucking ridiculous. God, last year was so bad. But just super fun to watch the offense do those things. And like I said, they did what you hope they do with Del Malzahn, Castellanos combo. Like, yeah, let's get the running game going. 220 rushing yards. Like, are you kidding me? They showed the stat multiple times. We averaged 89 rush yards a game last year. Jesus, that was a pleasure. So we bullied them on that side of the ball. Then let's switch over to the defense. That first drive aside, the defense went a long stretches with pushing their offensive line around. The pass rush was kind of hit or miss. James Williams needs to get better at finishing sacks. He had a few opportunities. He just couldn't make the tackle. But you saw Tony White get aggressive with some stunts. You saw guys blitzing from different parts of the field. I don't want to call them exotic blitzes because people throw around exotic too much. But the defense after the first drive really looked buttoned up. There were some moments where the secondary had some guys running free. Never really for like a over the top play, but for that kind of intermediate range guys running free in like zone coverage, which that'll have to be cleaned up. But there's one thing they won't have to clean up going into their next game is the effort on defense. My goodness, guys were just flying to the ball, like over and over again. Effort wasn't a question. Earl Little was all over the field, and man, when he pulls the pen to come downfield to make a tackle on the running back, he's a blur, and he had a lot of big hits. He looked like a completely different player from the little bit we saw from him last year. And looked like more like the guy that was hyped out of high school and originally went to Alabama. He was a lot of fun to watch. But I think the defense, obviously, I think going forward, probably maybe have a few more question marks. Again, I don't know if this Bama QB is probably any good, honestly. I don't know. I don't want to say he's bad, but like he ain't it. So I'm curious to see when they play a better quarterback how we hold up. Because there were some times there where like either A, he missed an open guy or made a poor throw on a crucial third down a couple times, or B, his awareness. Like if you were to look him up on the video game, based on this game that was just played, his QB awareness would be like 30 on College Football 26 or whatever, or 25. But I don't want to take too much credit away from the defense. I thought for the most part they played very well after the first drive. There's just some things where you think like long term, is this going to work out? Is the pass rush going to be consistent? But we did stop the run, which, hey, if you can run the ball like we did, 220 plus yards, and you can stop the run, decent chance you're going to win a lot of games, especially with this team's pretty manageable schedule. At least definitely more than I would have thought before this game started. But I won't talk season outlook because that's not what tonight's about. Tonight's about beating a top 10 team. Now, will Bama, finish the season as a top 10 team? I don't know. Maybe not. It's hard. Again, it's hard to extrapolate too much from game one. I think, as usual, both things can be true. Bama's probably not a top 10 team, and FSU is much better than people give them credit for. I think probably both things are true. Other things to touch on. Field goal kicker. Hey, no problems there. Looked solid, confident, right through the middle, nothing shaky. Punter's distance was fine, but there was one or two opportunities to kind of pin him inside the 20, and he kicked it too far. We've grown so accustomed to Mastromanos just consistently being able to do that, being able to pin guys in the 20. And then, of course, the other thing would be special teams, if we're going to stick there, would be Lucas, muffing the punt I guess you could call it, went off his foot. But like, I don't know what it is, but if you're watching this, you're a hardcore FSU fan, and you know that over the last decade, it feels like it's been very rare we can find a fucking punt returner that can just catch the goddamn ball. I mean, my goodness. Beyond the receiver we had, Keon Coleman, when he took punts in 2023, like that was the last guy in a minute that I was confident, oh yeah, he's going to catch the ball every time. Like, no question. It's not just catching the ball because you don't want to drop it. It's catching it because you don't want to give up, quote, hidden yardage, end quote. You know, and there was another time, too, where Lucas, for whatever reason, didn't catch the ball, and it just bounced and cost 15, 20 extra yards to FSU. But whatever. Those are small things that you hope to get cleaned up. Another big picture takeaway is, especially in offense, you can tell the difference in the coordinators. The team just looked more buttoned up. Like, it's raining, the ball's wet. You have a whole lot of things going on offense with motion and pitches and, read options, and nary a fumble. Nary a fumble. So that was pretty impressive. Very few penalties. Again, with all that motion and all that shit, like, what was there, one false start by Florida State? Maybe? Just looked very, very clean is what I guess what you could say. So, anyways, wrap it up here. Obviously, I'm ecstatic with the win. And I know you're not, like I said before, you're not supposed to extrapolate a ton from game one, but when it's this type of game versus that type of opponent, it's very difficult not to do that and start like recalibrating your expectations for this team. I'm now feel pretty good about almost every opponent's, about at least holding our own, and the expectations have gone from, hey, let's make a bowl, to now I'm like, why can't we win 8 or 9? Who knows? I don't want to get too crazy. Long season, injuries happen. Obviously got to keep TC upright. Got to keep the offensive line up, together. But they beat Bama by 14 when they were 14-point underdogs. There's not much else I can say about how excited you should be about this team. So I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you do too. I'm sure you will. And I'd love for this team to sustain this momentum so I can make more reaction videos, because last year obviously it wasn't worth anyone's time for anyone to make one, because it was just a chore to watch the games. But I have a feeling I'll be on here, a few more times than last year for sure. All right, well, that's it. That's all. Till next time. I'm out.